Well, my friends, we are live. It is July 17th in the year 2024. This is episode number 163 of Material Issues. I'm Mark Hershberger of Pop Detective Records. You see it right there, popdetective.com. All the catalog is now available at that new website. I'm over here in extremely oppressively hot South Jersey, USA, where we've been dangling near the 100-degree level for the last couple of days. A little relief inside on Friday, but joining me on the balmy southern West Coast, president of the International Pop Overthrow Festival and king of sushi tonight, Mr. David Bash. David, always great to see you, my friend.
Likewise, Mark. What did you say you were dangling?
We're dangling near 100 degrees.
I thought you were dangling something else, which
I was a participle.
Didn't surprise me. That wouldn't surprise me because I don't see it.
That's right.
Probably, where's my microscope?
That's generally the problem, but it's all good. Hey, like I said, we're very hot over here on the East Coast. Everybody else around the USA seems to be comfortable.
We're okay. We're okay. The valley's always hot during the summer, and we're probably in the low 90s today, which is normal.
I would take that right now. It is so hot.
Well, I'm sure your humidity is probably a bit higher than ours also.
Yeah. But it's been great. What else is going on? What's new? What's happening? It's a wonderful Wednesday here on Material Issues. I got a whole bunch of cool stuff to show you before we get rocking and rolling with our guests.
I don't know if our guest may have to wait like a half hour at this rate. No, he won't. He just put up a thumb. Yeah, he won't. Anyway, so a couple of things. I put up some tracks on the IPO site, tracks from the upcoming IPO Volume 25 compilation. I think I have 13 tracks up there. Nice. So, definitely check them out. I think this comp came out quite well, and I look forward to having it ready to go on August 2nd, which is opening night of International Pop Overthrow LA, our 25th. Hey, Tim, good afternoon as well. Or good evening to Marks, and good afternoon to me.
This could get out of control here tonight.
Anyway, while I did finish my sushi after my cardiac rehab, I had to eat something. Yeah. But now I got my Mountain Dew Purple Thunder Zero Sugar.
That's good for you too. Holy cow!
I'll never spontaneously combust because I believe there's some flame retardant in Mountain Dew, so good for me. But I wanted to talk about the watch I mentioned before. This is fair. This is about it's discontinued. I think it came out originally in 2012. It's a model of a very famous Omega watch from 1969-70 called the Flight Master. This is the updated version, the Space Master, which is both digital or both analog and digital. Now, this is a really cool feature. When you hit the light, it actually moves the hand. Notice how they came back to position. I'll do it this way. It actually goes. It goes out of the way of the digital, so you can read it.
You can read it, yeah.
And then it goes back to the normal time. There are a lot of things this watch can do. It can actually log flights. It tells you the day of the year and the week of the year that you're in, as well as a chronograph and the usual stuff. 2 different time zones, the usual stuff that analog digital do.
And that is Omega?
It's an Omega Space Master Z33. It's a pretty rare watch at this point. I found one pre-owned for a reasonable price, and it's one of my friend Jeff Harris, who's a watch dealer, he deals in antique watches, said it's the best watch in my collection, which I was surprised to hear because I didn't think he would be into anything with digital on it. But anyway, it's become a jewel along with the Longines and the Accutron Space View and the Frederick Constant World Timer. So I've been wearing this, not to cardiac rehab, but I've been wearing it pretty constantly.
Because that's the first thing they'll take off your wrist if you happen to pass out on the treadmill.
I know, it'll be gone.
without the watch on your wrist. Yeah.
No doubt about it. Nice new release. I'll just talk about one today.
Yeah.
Our good friends from the UK, Groovy Uncle. This is
Great
have
stuff.
You gotten this yet?
No, I've listened to it online, but I don't have the vinyl in order.
Oh, this is their new album, their 13th, I believe, called Making Excuses.
Yeah, really good.
Groovy Uncle with Jane Wrangham and Jules Winchester, but it's mostly the main man, Glenn Pragnell, or Prangnell, hard name to pronounce. They've been known for many years for doing mod music, and they're still doing the kind of, psychedelic writing. But this album is a bit more subdued. It reminds me in certain cases of Harry Nilsson, just as our latest album by our guest does. That seems to be, I've noticed a few bands going in that direction. So Harry seems to be getting a good resurgence here. And like I said, I had emceed the 9th annual Harry Nilsson sing-along. Maybe our guest will come out to LA to perform at that one day. It's so much fun. So anyway, this is out now on vinyl and CD.
Nice.
I highly recommend it. Definitely will be somewhere in my top 25, I would think, for the year. So yeah. Anyway,
they're really good. They're really good at what they do, and
they are. And again, they're kind of branching out into something slightly different.
Yeah.
So what you got going on?
Got a couple things I'll fly through here quick. I got to say a big thank you to Jeremy, as he just sent me his brand new CD, Mystery of the Seven Stars. I have not cracked it open yet and played it, but that's on my to be played list probably tomorrow. But thank you.
How many albums does he have this year? 7?
Yeah, 7 albums this year. I think he has 142 in his canon. But that's cool. But we talked about this last week. I said I was going to get it picked up, but there it is. That's the autograph of Willard Hershberger.
That is awesome. It's been colorized, right?
It's a colorized photo from 1938.
Wow.
And the autograph is right there in the middle. Of course, my name is Hershberger. We did discuss that Willard Hershberger is the only Major League Baseball player to have killed himself during the regular season. There have been a few suicides before and after seasons, but only one guy did it during the season after a doubleheader in Boston, and that's
if I recall, he was in for the injured Ernie Lombardi, who was the Reds catcher, and he just didn't think he was pulling his weight, and it was during a pennant race, and he thought he was going to blow it for the team, and he just couldn't take it.
And then they went on to win the World Series and give him his widow his full cut of
what an awful thing, though.
Yeah, terrible. Well, yeah, when he was little, he saw his dad kill himself. He witnessed.
Really? Oh man,
found his dad, and
that makes it real. Yeah, that definitely makes it real.
But a little bit of music things. I told you I got this back in the mail. It's the PSA Mint 9 Paul McCartney Lock of Hair.
Wow.
Just came back, got a Mint 9 out of that card, which is kind of cool. And we're a little happy with that. But here's a little thing for you, my friend, because I know that you know that. You know what that is, right?
Magic 8-ball?
It's just a regular 8-ball.
Oh.
But
I can't quite see. I see it
signed by the Black Widow.
Oh my God! Wow.
Jeanette Lee. Pretty cool, huh?
Jeanette Lee being a champion pool player.
Yeah.
How is she doing now?
She's doing much better, and we're still trying to get her on the show here. She's doing wonderful with her cancer battles, and she has a brand new autobiography coming out in August. So I'd like to get her on the show to talk about that as well.
So that would be wonderful.
We're working on it. It's all about her health. So
yeah, no, I get that. Well, speaking of brand new, our guest, fine musician, singer, songwriter, has a brand new album. We've talked about it in the last few episodes. Top of the World on the resurrected Parasol Records label. And this is a man who, if you were back in the day when we had the Oddities mailing list, internet group, back before people had songs up online, back before we needed word of mouth to get people to buy stuff.
He's as old as we are.
His debut, he released his debut album called Pop Job, and indeed it was 1998. Just real sprightly kind of power pop, a little bit of bubblegum, as the cover would suggest. Just a really good record. And back then there weren't as many people putting out records, so if you did something good, it stood out, and this album certainly did. But he wasn't done. A few years later, he put out the $1 Million Milkshake right here. This is a Japanese version with a couple of bonus tracks. Yes, Mark, I really went to town with this one. Another really good record of sprightly power pop and bubblegum. And he just kept on keeping on or something. And then a bunch of years later, here we go with Queen's English, which, by the way, another band, the Malibus, have an album called Queen's English. This is where you could see a sense of a change of direction. I mean, the title song is really power pop. And when I first heard it, I thought, well, it's going to be another great power pop album. And then suddenly the style changed to something a bit more Nilsson-esque. Well, more than a bit more, very Nilsson-esque. We got to talk to our guest about, he must have a strong love of Nilsson. I don't think this is coincidence. But, I mean, the songs were his and were very original, but you could certainly hear the influence. So now, that was 2010. So 14 years later, it's been a while, but he's back with Top of the World, which is also a very Nilsson-esque album and has more great tunes, which we'll play some of them for you. But right now, we're going to bring him on to talk about his career and such. Would you please give a huge Material Issues welcome to Mr. Mark Bacino?
And there he is.
Hey, yeah. Hey guys.
How you doing tonight, Mark? Good to see you.
Thank you for having me.
I don't think you know this musician, but Mark, you look and sound a lot like an LA musician named Bobby Bogner, who still kind of has a band called the Piper Downs. He's been playing IPO for pretty much since the second or third year out here. One year he actually brought the band out to Liverpool to play the Cavern Club, which we need to get you to do. I mean, it would be a thrill for you. I can only tell you that. If there's one thing I can guarantee in this life, is that anyone who comes out to the Cavern to play IPO Liverpool, they'll never forget it in the best possible way. Mm-hmm. And obviously you're a Beatles fan, and that's the Mecca right there.
Sure.
So hopefully one day. Yeah, I will not let up on you until you relent, my friend.
That would be a thrill for certain. I can't do it. No way.
Of all the episodes we've done, David, Mark has some of the coolest background right here with all the guitars and the keyboard and the full drum kit. This is pretty good.
Yeah, this is the lovingly dubbed the Queen's English.
This is the Queen's English recording company that you have there for.
That's correct. Yep.
Do you play everything on the record?
It depends on the record, and it depends on the song. Usually, if there are better players in the room, then I'll usually defer to them, which is always my thing. I've been lucky enough to work with some cool co-producers over the years, so and they've been guitar players generally, so I'll defer to them. But it depends on the song. Like there's some songs on the Queen's English record where where everything is me. I'm sort of a jack of all trades, master of none. So, but I know enough on each instrument that I could do some damage for better or worse.
There you go.
And we'll get to the actual album a little bit later on in the show here, but I just want to question: was everything recorded right there at the Queen's English recording studio?
No, some of it was. Some of it was recorded here. Again, it depends on the song. Some of the a few songs were recorded here in part or whole. A bunch of them I mixed, sitting right here where I'm sitting right now. So that happened here. But then on the new record, again, I was working with two different co-producers, namely a gentleman by the name of Ron Zabraki and another gentleman by the name of Jay Godfried. and Jay's worked with They Might Be Giants a bit, and Laura Cantrell, and so they both had their own studios. So we were sort of bouncing, between the three, and then of course with COVID in the mix, and even without COVID in the mix, we were bouncing files around to different folks. So this new record was really recorded like New York, Nashville, it's just all over the place. So
and whoever mastered it, and as you said, you mixed it right there. The production value is really, really sharp, really good.
Thanks, man.
Really,
yeah. I was lucky enough to have Greg Calby, the legendary Greg Calby, master this record, and it really needed that. It definitely benefited from Greg's immense talents as a mastering engineer. I mean, he's been doing it for literally, I think, 50 years. He's done you name it. I mean, he's done Born to Run, Damn the Torpedoes, Bowie's Heroes, John Lennon, Walls and Bridges. I mean, it goes on and on. And
the mediocre albums there.
Yeah, Graceland, little thing like Graceland, So, just a bunch of hacks, basically.
Yeah,
right.
But,
until he met you and did your stuff. His career
Yeah.
might take off. I don't know.
His career is taking off thanks to me now.
But all of your albums, and I mean this in the nicest way, have a very clean sound to them. I mean, it's not cluttered. There's some bands sound great sloppy. Even the recordings sloppy.
There's not a whole lot of distortion on it.
Yeah,
I thank you for that, and I appreciate you guys noticing that, because I work very hard on that, and I've been some of my producers, much to their chagrin, that they want to kill me by the time, or my co-producers when we're done, but that's always been a sticking point with me, and I think because I know how to record and mix, I think that's part of the reason why I'm so picky with that stuff. And a lot of times it's been a struggle a lot of the times too, because, and a thing that's gotten in the way of speeding up the record's progress, because in the past I've tried different mixers, especially on Queen's English. I was thinking the other day that I should put out an EP of all the mixes that I didn't use for Queen's English. And they were by some serious folks. I mean, like, I'm not going to name names, but there were like some serious high-end mixing folks that have made, have done major label mixes, and they're just talented guys. But I kept getting these mixes back, and I was just like, not happy with it. Just, I don't know what maybe it's me. I'm just crazy. I don't know. But so I ended up doing a lot of that myself, and just putting in the hours to try to get it to where I wanted it to be. And then, then the other secret is bring it to a really good mastering engineer. I've worked with, aside from Greg, on this record, Queen's English was mastered by George Marino, who's another legend, and he's unfortunately not with us anymore. He passed a few years back, but just another amazing, amazing guy, So I've been lucky enough to work with those guys to kind of, help polish things up after I've been picking over them for too long.
Well, at the end of the day, you have to be the one who's happy with it.
Yeah, man. I think that's the case, It's like, I think I'm always here looking for something and listening for something, and maybe not everybody always hears that when I'm working on it, but I've always just kind of pushed to do that, because you're right. I mean, at the end of the day, it's like my name goes on it. These things are out there forever. They're going to be there long after, we're all gone. And so that doesn't escape me. I try to always feel like I tried to do the best I can with what I have at the time in terms of resources, and maybe don't always hit the mark. Most of the time I don't, but I do what I can with what I have. And then I feel like, okay, I did my best,
Now, there's an interesting point, because we do like to go off in some tangents here on material issues. You never know which way. But you made a little statement there. It said this stuff, you put it out there, your name's on it. It's that is stamped on CD. It's digitally out there forever, long after all of us are gone.
Right.
For the lack of a better phrase, how cool is that? I mean, Seriously, you make music, and unless the entire planet blows up, it has been released. It's going to be floating around out there long after you're gone. You know?
Yeah.
Just
I mean, that's not lost on me for sure. I definitely think about that. And obviously as we get older, you think about legacy, you know, a little more than you would normally think about, I guess.
Yeah.
But I always had that thought in mind. You know, I always felt like this is a fixed medium kind of thing. And I always had that thought in the back of my head, like, you know, okay, try to do the best you can because this thing's going to outlive you. And I love that about art, to be honest. I feel like that's the great thing about any kind of art that anybody does. I mean, that to me is the thing, like that you make something out of nothing and then you throw it out into the world and it becomes it's not even yours anymore. It becomes somebody else's. I mean, that's one thing about this new record, having been gone for 14 years. Just the outpouring of people that have been emailing me and messaging me and say, oh man, you know, I'm so glad you're back. I mean, it's been beautiful. I've been really touched and honored, you know, by it. And like just getting those responses and people also sort of saying, and this has been going on since day one is like people will message you and say, you know, this record really means a lot to me. You know, I attached this to an amazing memory that I had, or somebody will say, you know, this song really helped me through, you know, this particular time in my life. And, you know, so it becomes other people's, you know, which is what I love about it. And it becomes something to everybody that it touches and you don't even know what's going on, you know, and that's kind of cool, but it's also kind of weird because sometimes I feel like, well, is it really resonating with anybody? But then you get all these messages back and when you put something new out and they're like, hey, you know, this is like, you know, this is part of our lives now. And I'm really like honored by that, man. So it becomes somebody else's stuff and that's perfect. And then it means something. It almost doesn't even matter what it means to me in terms of like, what do the songs mean? I mean, of course I have an opinion, but it could mean something different. Every song could mean something different to everybody else.
Sure.
And that's great. And then it just goes out there and it's everybody's and it's into the universe forever. And I mean,
and you know, the other beautiful thing about that is that after you're gone, you never know. Somebody may, you know, somebody may discover it and it may become famous after the fact.
Yeah.
I mean, that's happened with enough visual artists.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, it's happened with philosophers. It's happened with a lot of people. I can't exactly relate to it, Mark, because I'm not a musician, but this will be my legacy. Well, this is volume 24. Man. I've got 24 of these things that will live beyond me for whatever that's worth.
For definitely sure. Yeah. I mean, it you know, it's something that it's maybe not your songs, but you created this, you know, whole world of the IPO. And that's like amazing too, man. And I think people are going to have their own memories of the shows, you know, and that's going to live on. And then people are going to have those records, like you said. Yeah, I'm really, I dig that idea of like some kid finding these things in like 100 years on Spotify, just some random teenage kid laying in his bed, listening on whatever they listen to at that point. It'd be like a cone of silence or something. And then it'll be like, what is this? You know? Like,
I wonder if Spotify will be around, or rather we'll just have chips inserted in our head where all the knowledge of the world exists.
Maybe so.
And in 100 years, hell, I could see that.
I could see it too,
but
man.
You don't know. I mean, I was going to bring this up earlier, but pre-show. But today, yeah, I've always been a casual Bee Gees fan. You know, I know all the big hits and whatnot, but I haven't played the albums and the deep cuts for a long time. And I started this morning, just working from home. I started with album number 1, which came out in 1967, right?
Yeah.
So that's how many years ago is that? Almost
55 years.
Right. It's 55 years ago, and I'm now working my way through their entire catalog, every cut.
Yeah.
And now the Bee Gees were who they were, you know, quite well known and everything, but that could be anybody 30 years from now saying, I'm going to start with Pop Job and work my way through all 9 albums that Mark has released. I know you're only at 4 right now, but you got room for 5 more.
Good.
But that's you know, that's
yeah, no, it's amazing, man. I mean, it's only new. It's new to anybody who hasn't heard it yet. Bee Gees or IPO or anything, I mean, anything that anybody hasn't heard as of yet is new to them. And it doesn't matter if it was made 55 years ago or 5 years ago,
And of course, David does have his brick on the wall at the
I
cavern.
was going to say that. I was going to say when he said nobody will remember, I said, well, you have a brick, man. I don't have a brick.
None of the rest of us have a brick.
Come on, man.
It's true. When people walk in the Cavern Pub, my brick is right next to the door. So, I mean, 99% of them are going to say, who the fuck is that? But maybe they'll actually look me up. So, hey.
Yeah. We'll see David
Clem Burton right above Little Steven. I mean, come on. They gave me an amazing spot.
Yeah, that's great.
You want to hear a track? Let's hear a track from Top of the World. When I choose the tracks I want to play, one of them is always the first track because I figure there's a reason why the artist decided to lead off their album with a particular track. And this is, of course, a track called Kaylee Hughes. Well, the first question I have to ask is there a Kaylee Hughes?
Yeah, that's a question I've been getting a lot of.
Sure.
No, unfortunately, I have to report that Kaylee Hughes is a fictitious character. But no, it's not a real person, but it's sort of a mashup of I don't know why this thought occurred to me, but it occurred to me that we all come across these kind of people in life that you meet them and they're so nice to the point where you wonder if they're even real, like, are they giving me a story? Are they are they super phony? Are they really that nice?
All the time. Yeah.
Yeah. All the time. And
I get that a lot.
Do you?
No, I don't. I wish I did.
And that was the thought, like, I don't know why that stuck in my head, but then I turned it into a song where I was like, okay, what if there was a narrative where there was a guy who meets a girl who's like this, and he wants to believe that she's amazing, but then the little thing in the back of his mind is always gnawing away at him, is like, is she an axe murderer or something? Is she gonna, so I don't really reveal that in the song until the bridge. And then after that, he kind of talks about how he's sleeping with one eye open. It's a little cynical. It's very New York-y. I think when I was talking to Aaron at the Parapopaholic a couple of weeks back, he had said, he goes, that is such like a New York, because he's a New York guy. He's like, that's such a New York sort of thought process, And I said, maybe it is, man. I don't know. But I think the process. Yeah, so that's Kaylee Hughes in a nutshell.
Okay. The lyrics came first, though. The idea came first via.
The idea came first. And the lyrics hardly ever come first for me, to be honest. Okay. I'm more of a melody guy and a chord guy, and then I kind of work back from that.
Next time I'm going to play the song first before we talk about it.
Yeah.
Let's get into it. The opening track on Top of the World by Mark Bacino, Kaylee Hughes. Here we go.
Have you ever been lonely? Have you ever had the blues? Have you ever had a bad day? Kaylee Hughes. Have you ever felt like crying? Have you ever shed a tear or two? Have you ever had a bad day? Kaylee Hughes. You're so sweet, you're so nice. Makes me think about you twice. Hate to be that one guy asking why. Have you ever been lonely? Have you ever had the blues? Have you ever had a bad day? Kaylee Hughes. Call me cynical, please tell me I'm wrong. But Kaylee is someone buried underneath your lawn.
There we go.
You're just good there's no vice. You're all sugar without the spice. But I'm sleeping with one eye open wide, yeah. Have you ever been lonely? Have you ever had the blues? Have you ever had a bad day? Kaylee Hughes. Have you ever had a bad day? Kaylee Hughes. Have you ever had a bad day?
Mark, I have to ask you. I mean, you mentioned melody being central to what you do, and it certainly is. None other than Billy Joel had described himself as a self-confessed melody freak, and I definitely hear some Billy Joel on this track. Would you consider him to be an influence at all? A New Yorker, by the way.
That's true. A Long Islander there. I love Billy Joel. I will admit that. I think he's a great songwriter. I would agree with the melody there is I think with him is king.
Franco.
And I can say that I listened to a lot of Billy Joel growing up. Not like crazy super fan, but enough that I think it's down in there. You know, it's funny. I've been hearing that mention, the Billy Joel thing, a bit on this, for this record, and it never occurred to me, man. But it's true. Now, when people say it, like yourself, I'm like, okay, maybe so. I mean, I definitely 52nd Street, The Stranger, Glass Houses.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Definitely records that I took in as a kid for certain. So yeah, I think it's there subliminally, although I didn't consciously think about it too much.
It came to me unknowingly, as George Harrison said. And I'm sure it did. I mean, I think if songs end up sounding like other songs, I do believe in most cases that did come to the artist unknowingly. I don't think people try to rip off a particular song unless it's like the Ruddles, it's an obvious spoof of something.
Right.
How could it not? I mean, you grow up with these songs, they're in your head, they end up going into your unconscious mind, and they're going to manifest in some way, and often they do with what a singer-songwriter does. So
sure. Yeah, it definitely happens. I mean, I think if you played this song, Kaylee Hughes, right next to Billy Joel, you would say it sounds nothing like Billy Joel, but the vibe of it, there's something in there that makes you feel
Ray Davies, interesting.
Oh yeah, well, that's a high praise. Thank you, Rich.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the case. It just reminds you of that. But then, probably if you played the tracks against each other, you probably would say,
no, that may be true. A lot of it's in the cadence also.
Yeah, I think so.
Soul has a particular cadence, and I hear it on Kaylee Hughes. Yeah. Not as much on the other tracks. Sure. Let's go back. When you were a kid, were your parents musicians at all? Did they push you in this direction, or did you as all on your own?
Not really, man. My mom, she actually has she had a bit of a good voice. Not that I would ever hear it, except maybe like standing next to her in church as a little kid, and it registered even when I was a little kid. It was like, oh wow, she's got a pretty good voice, but not that she was ever a musician or anything like that. My dad, he was a little bit of a player. Like he played a little bit of ukulele when he was a kid, and he played a tiny bit of guitar, and he was into the chromatic harmonica a bit too, which I actually have that sitting in my studio here.
Oh,
cool. But not like when I was a kid growing up, like that was like, he was already done with all that stuff. He was just like, oh, go to work and come home. I'm exhausted. I'm going to sit in my chair. Right. I saw him maybe pick up and play those things for me, a handful of times at best, so, and in terms of music, I mean, in the house, my dad early on too, when I was a little kid, he had which does explain some things. He had some Monkees records.
Wow.
Which I think he just got for free from the Clo-Gems guy, some guy that he knew, because my dad is like from the silent generation. He was born in like 1931, so he's more of a like Frank Sinatra. My mom, from that era. But he did build himself a really killer hi-fi, and the records that he had like Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass.
Yeah.
He was also into Louis Bonfa, which was a Brazilian guitar player.
Was one I'm not familiar
swinging 60s. Bonfa did a really cool record with Stan Getz. You guys should, if you haven't heard that, check that out. So he was playing some of this when I was a kid. And years later now, I love that stuff, man. I just love it. So again, it kind of permeates its way into the music a little bit, but that was about it, man. And it wasn't like he was a music guy who would come home every day and play music. That wasn't the case. It was kind of not. I don't know how I came to this, to be honest, because it's kind of left field in regard to my parents.
Well, were you listening to Top 40 radio in the 70s? I assume.
Yeah, that was definitely the case. I had a tiny little. I don't even know what this was, but I had a tiny AM radio on my bike that you could mount on your bike. It was a combination headlight and the 70s. I'm riding around in my bike in the summer, and I have this thing on, and it's tuned. And David will know this because he's, and you'll know it too, Mark. What I'm going to say is, I was listening to a lot of NBC and a lot of WABC.
Yeah, sure.
And and those guys. And what was fascinating, and again, I think back on it now and how it affected me, is I was riding around all day in the summer with that stuff playing. So they would go, which was really weird when you think about it now, but they would go from like Genesis, Abacab to like, Brandy, You're a Fine Girl, to like, Cheap Trick, I Want You to Want Me. It was just all over the map. It wasn't segregated. I guess those were sort of the dying days of AM radio. It was sort of the tail end of it. Where I was kind of getting that. But for me, then What a Fool Believes, that was like, these are the things I was hearing. So I was getting a very heavy, not knowing it, of course, but I was getting a heavy dose of the pop genre, the top 40 pop of that day, and a very varied version of it too, where there were no boundaries. Not like it is now where, whatever's left of radio, whatever that is tightly segregated unless you're, like on a specialty program or something like that where people can play whatever they want. So that was, I think that's part of it, man. You're keying into it. That I think that was in my head for many summers.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, I grew up a little earlier than you, but in 1970, for example, on WABC, the year they did their Heavy 100 of 1970 at the end of the year, you could hear Johnny Cash, followed by the Jackson 5, followed by the Carpenters, followed by Led Zeppelin.
Right.
And nobody really the Jackson 5 were called soul, and Led Zeppelin were called rock, and I guess Johnny Cash was called country. But it didn't matter. They just played it, and they were just all the hits of the day, and that was that. And nobody worried about like, what are we going to play after this? Or they just played what was on the charts.
It was beautiful,
a great time.
Yeah, a great time, beautiful, and that's the way music should be. It's like what did I'm trying to remember who had said it. It's either, I think it was Duke Ellington or Dizzy Gillespie. One of the two. I think it was Duke Ellington maybe said that there was there's no difference in music. It's just good music and bad music.
Right.
And I love that idea. I think that's like a beautiful idea, and they really had it down. At that time. I don't know what happened after that.
But you've mentioned a few jazz people so far, like Stan Getz. Was jazz another influence on you as a child? Yeah,
I don't know. I aside from the stuff that my dad was playing around the house a little bit, it wasn't much as a kid. I kind of came to that in the end of high school, the beginning of college, and my love of jazz really opened up there. I mean, you probably wouldn't 100% tell from my music at all. And I think there's a lot of stuff about my music that people always go, oh, you're a guy who listens to the Beatles and the Beach Boys and Nilsson and, Randy Newman. Yeah, but there's so much other stuff that I grew up on that I feel informs the writing, but you just wouldn't, know it. Yeah. So jazz is definitely when I was in college, late high school, college, I really discovered jazz in a big way. And I probably listen now to more jazz than I do pop music.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. But you wouldn't know it. I'll dive back, like Mark was saying, go back into somebody's catalog, like Louis Bonfa or somebody like that. And you'll go, man, this stuff, you listen to some of that, especially the swinging sort of 60s Brazilian jazz. I was digging that a lot last year. And you hear this stuff, and man, I swear some of that stuff, to me anyway, I feel like it's incredible because it doesn't sound, it sounds swinging 60s a little, but just harmonically, it feels like it could have been done yesterday.
Yeah.
Timeless to me.
Well, I was just, you don't know, because you grew up with influences, and you record your albums, and the way you hear everything that you've done and you've recorded, very different from the way everybody else might hear and perceive.
Sure.
So when they say to you, oh, we hear the Beatles and we hear the Beach Boys, we hear Nilsson, we hear, and you're sitting there going, oh, why do they hear that? I don't hear that as much, but it's the way we perceive everything. But and you grew up with the albums that your dad played on occasion. You heard this and that, and you never know how things are going to play out in your own head and your own experiences. I was looking up on the wall here. I've got a signed thing from Jean-Jacques Perret, and I used to listen to Hugo Montenegro and all the lounge stuff from the mid to late 60s, which just takes you off in a weird spacey kind of place. But I absolutely love that. I hear that in music everywhere I go now. So,
and of course, I always get people think that all I like is power pop, which is insane, because I have tons of R&B and I've got rockabilly and stuff like that in my collection. So sometimes you just zero in on certain things, either in the music you create or the festivals that you put on. But there's always more to it. Very few people only like one kind of genre.
Yeah, I agree, man. I think it's just if you're a music fan, you're going to be a well-rounded music fan, like you guys are describing, but you do get kind of pigeonholed, I think, depending on, as Mark was saying, what people perceive you to be, along the jazz stuff. Aside from the jazz stuff, I grew up learning to play and write. My formative years are like the 80s as far as a teenager. So, to me, I just went to see Daryl Hall and Elvis Costello last night.
I heard about that show. Yeah,
Radio City. Yeah, we could get into that. There's a good and bad points to that as far as I would say. But those guys, in the 80s, sure, I listened to the Beatles and the Beach Boys, but I listened to Elvis Costello, and the Police are huge. The Cars are huge. Hall & Oates, huge for me. Huge. I love that stuff. I know all that stuff, but listening to my, listening my records, you would never, no one would say, hey, that, sounds like Hall & Oates. It's funny. One time I had a manager that I was talking to, who was interested in repping me around the last record. And she said, your record reminds me a little bit of Hall & Oates. And I was like, I don't know how she got that out of there. And I was like, okay, if you want to manage me, we're good. That right there, unfortunately it didn't end up panning out, but
people love to lump artists in a category. We like to categorize people, from the way we hear it, the way we perceive it. It's like, oh man, I hear the Hall & Oates, or I hear this, right? And you're definitely this genre. We just like to do that for some reason, because we need to describe it to other people somehow.
And we like to do it more as social media and all the vast amounts of information bombard us, and there's more and more of it. We have to simplify everything.
100%.
And that's part of genre classification is to do that. Yep. And even though there may be more layers to it, people are compelled now, in order to make sense of all the information that we get in the world, to categorize everything as simplistically as possible.
I agree totally. I think that's definitely happening. you know. For
Mark,
sure.
let's talk about this. This is the one that put you on the map, so to speak.
Yeah.
Back in the day, the Oddities mailing list or
Yes.
internet list was a huge arena for pop fans to get together and talk about things that they've been hearing, events that they'd been attending, and Pop Job, which I guess came out in 1998, was a big focus of people on. I don't remember. Were you a member of Oddities or?
Yeah, I was definitely on Oddities. Yeah, for sure.
Oddities. Yeah, I wrote for Oddities. Yeah.
Yeah. It was a great list that we were on. It was all, so I guess it was the beginning stages of the internet, but it was all email based, and that was a great list, man. And everybody on there was, I was on it, and people were super supportive, man, when that record came out.
Well, you put out something that people had been craving for many years. You put out a really fun, hooky, power pop record. Without the distorted guitars that some power pop have, a much cleaner one, and your voice was very fresh, and it had optimism in it, and it was. So what inspired Pop Job, the long player?
Oh man, well, thank you for the kind words, first of all. Yeah, I don't know, man. I wish I could say that it was all, some sort of big master plan, but it really wasn't. I think it was just in the zeitgeist, or at least in that underground, as you guys know, that sort of, I think that time frame, there was the sort of resurgence, if you want to call it, of the power pop vibe. And it was just something that was happening. I saw it happening a lot in New York. There were bands that I was friends with and going to see that were kind of vibing in that way. And even in the mainstream, I think at that time, you were starting to see, even outside of the indie pop world, even in the major label world, you were starting to see, the Weezers of the world and the Fountains of Wayne's, and you were starting to see this stuff. So there was definitely something going on, and I think it was happening on the West Coast. It was happening on the East Coast, and so I don't know, man. I think I was just a young guy who was really into music and was tapping into that scene. I think again, it was subliminal. I didn't really plan to like say, hey, I'm just going to work in this niche, and I'm going to, there was none of that. I think I mentioned the story. I was on my friend Michael Shelley's radio show this weekend, and I mentioned that the only thing I'd say was premeditated about this record was that I was talking to an A&R person at Columbia at the time, who was kind of a champion and was really nice, giving me advice and stuff. And she had heard some of my earlier stuff previous to this, which was I had put out some self-releases on cassette and, pre-label, pre-Parasol and all that. And it was kind of pop, but more like in an 80s vein, and she told me, she's like, you're really like a pop songwriter in the classic sense, and maybe you should think about leaning into that a bit, so I didn't really 100% get what she was talking about. I kind of did, I was like, okay, classic. And I just was starting to write for Pop Job around that time. And my only thing with that was just, I want to try to write the hookiest, catchiest songs I can. That was it. That was really that was the grand master plan. It wasn't like, I was trying to put out a record or craft a record that was going to be this thing that, like you said, people were waiting for or looking for. I just tried to make them songs as hooky as possible and lean into the classic thing just for fun a little bit. And that was it.
And we talk about the Oddities list, so we talk about Oddities magazine, we talk Bruce Brodeen, Not Lame, all. Sure. You were part of that particular moment in time when this stuff was happening. That's how many of us got to know each other really well.
Sure.
That's the fact that we were part of something, and to be a part of that and come along and have an album like that fits right into the puzzle It's just, I mean, it's great timing, and it's an awesome thing to be a part of. And it's just
Well, yeah, that leads into something I wanted to ask you, because, you know, as I remember well, I started IPO in 1998. It was still a time when there was hope that artists could get signed to major labels, if not the label itself, something that was distributed, like DreamWorks was distributed by Geffen, and a lot of West Coast power pop or pop acts like the Sugar Plastic were getting signed by labels like that. Did you have an ambition at that point to get a major label deal?
Oh, definitely, man. 100%. That was I think the goals of my contemporaries and my friends around that time, because the internet was very new and nothing like it was now. I mean, the goals, I think, for me and a lot of my friends who were playing seriously and writing seriously were to get some sort of deal, because that was the only way you could make a record and get it into the stores. You know, I still remember like going to Tower on 4th and Broadway in Manhattan and seeing my name on a tray. I mean, that was it for me, man.
That's got to be a huge thrill. Yeah.
Yeah, man. I'm done. You know, it's like the brick on the Cavern Club wall, man. It's like you see that, only it's ephemeral because that's gone. You know, the brick will stay, but the tray card's gone, long gone. But that was a thing, man. You know, you needed. It's not like it is now, you know. Like my son, he's 19, and he said to me recently, seriously, he's like, what do you need a label for exactly? You know, and that's their perspective, you know, in this world. But back then, in the pop top time, if you wanted to get a record out in the world, the only way you could do it was to get on a label. So yeah, my theory was try to get on a label, try to get on an indie label, or try to get on a major label. And I, you know, landed on an indie label, Parasol, and they were, you know, pretty well, you know, thought of at the time. And they were putting out some cool indie records. And so I was like, okay, great. You know, and then the thought was, okay, you put out 1 or 2 indies, then you get a manager and you move on to the major label. That was always my goal, which I didn't really make.
But you know why though, Mark? A lot of it was because that was right around the time things started to change.
True.
When Napster came along, and just other aspects of the internet, which were allowing people to hear music for free, and were allowing people to market their music without the aid of a major label. And the major labels either they didn't see it coming, or they refused to see the writing on the wall, and they would publicly laugh it off, saying, this is just going to be a fad, but we'll be around forever. And then within 2 years, they were all shutting their doors because they weren't making enough money anymore. I mean, you may have certainly had, I mean, if things had stayed the way they were, maybe you would have been signed to a major. Maybe. But there was no way once we hit the new millennium, people like you and other very talented artists, that's not what they were. The few major labels who were left, that's just not what they were looking for.
They are not looking for that. Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, in '98, that was definitely an achievable goal. It very much could have been. How did you market the record? Did you have an agent, a publicist, or did you simply by yourself contact all these labels?
You mean the indie labels in order to get the Parasol deal, or
well, not just even majors, whoever were you contacting people, or did you have people do it on your behalf?
No, I think I mostly did it myself in between the indie releases. I was, you know, talking to some managers and talking to some lawyers and sending stuff out myself. In hindsight, I realized I probably made some mistakes. I did sign up with at around the time of $1 Million Milkshake. I signed up with a pretty cool manager. They're not looking for that. Yeah, that's for sure.
I mean, in '98, that was
$1 Million Milkshake.
What happened here?
They're not looking for.
I'm hearing. I was hearing.
We had a little crossover there on.
Yeah. All right, no worries.
I think it happens. It's live TV, folks.
It is. It's the beauty of it.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, the long and short of it is, I did end up with a pretty high powered manager at a certain point, and some things were going on, and never panned out. It just didn't happen. I think the timing, like you said, David, and all that stuff was just, it was not right. I mean, that was like 2003 by the time that was happening, and that I think maybe that ship had started to sail.
Oh yeah, no, by then it definitely did, and you know, power pop or pop artists, you know, if they could hook up with an indie that might be able to give them some tour support, might have distribution in major record stores or even overseas. That was about the best you could hope for. And believe me, not everybody got it. I mean, by that time we had albums coming out the wazoo by people, and a lot of them were self-released because they couldn't even, you know, they couldn't get to where you got.
Yeah, man, I feel very, you know, lucky that I was able to, you know, put the record out on Parasol. At the time they had really good distribution. You know, I think they were partnered with Red Eye at that point. So the record was everywhere it could be. And, you know, people were, you know, I signed some deals in Japan that were licensing deals, which are kind of gone by the wayside. There you go.
Japanese issue with the bonus track.
Great. That was a company called Nippon Crown, which was like the biggest independent label in Japan. You know, it started, I think, by Columbia or somebody. So yeah, there was, and then Pop Job was out with a company called SYFT on vinyl in Japan. So yeah, I can't
really. I have to find that now.
Oh, it's you'll find a copy on eBay that's ridiculously priced.
I was going to say it's probably not cheap, you know.
Yeah,
Discogs, hopefully.
Yeah, Parasol had a few copies hidden away, and I don't know. We would have to shout out to Jeff Merritt right now.
There you go, parasolrecords.com. Let's
I don't think we have anymore, but you never know. There might be a one in the dusty stockroom somewhere. But it was mostly Japan, but I got a copy. I got like 2 copies.
Tell David's eBaying it right now.
I'm actually discogging or something right now.
Yeah,
there it is. LP.
It's definitely up there. They pop up.
There's nothing on Discogs. Yeah, it's rare as hell.
I think you would go to eBay and you'll probably find one.
Okay.
But it's probably ridiculously priced, and there's only one. There's a bonus track on it too, which is
nice. Now David has to have it. Oh, here we go.
Oh my
it's
God,
an acoustic version of Inside. So the song Inside. So it was a mix that was stripped away of all the instruments that are on Inside, except for the vocals and the acoustic guitars.
Oh wow, I love that.
Kind of.
So the first 2 albums are, you know, they're very power pop. Again, the clean power pop sound that you had, and then Queen's English. Interestingly enough, it begins with a power pop song, so people might think, okay, he's still doing that, and all of a sudden, it changes to something much softer and more Nilsson-esque. Mm-hmm. What was in your head at that point in terms of your songwriting approach? Were you looking to do something different, or was that just what was there?
No, again, it was like Pop Job. There was not much premeditated sort of thought behind it. You know, Pop Job was what I described it to be, and $1 Million Milkshake, that idea was just, hey, let's try to make Pop Job, but amped up a little bit with some horns and orchestration and things like that. So there was a little bit of that starting to creep in, which carried over, I think, into my thinking for Queen's English in terms of adding, you know, a wider palette of things, of instruments. But yeah, there was no premeditated. The most I can say is, again, it's all subliminal. I think the circumstances around that record were my wife and I had bought a house. We were kind of, you know, we left Manhattan. We bought a place out in Queens where we are now, and we started to build the nest. You know, we had a son, and you know, we were just sort of thinking like, you know, this is what we're going to do. It's a new phase of our life. And I think at the time I was definitely guilty of listening to a lot of Harry at that point in time. I don't know. It just suited the vibe of what was going on. You know, and then, you know, so I think Harry's songs have some of that childlike quality to them.
Very much so.
I felt like that, you know, Little Cowboy, you know, all that stuff kind of fed into the nursery, my son being born. And so then
Ah,
it just kind of comes out of all that. It becomes Queen's English for me is a very homespun record. A lot of it was recorded and mixed in, not this studio that I'm in now, but my old studio. And that was something that was, I think, factored into the whole thing. It's got a very homey,
it does.
Harry quality to it. And again, it was nothing premeditated, just that's what was coming out in the songwriting. And I just went with it. I realized that after a couple of songs, I was like, okay, this isn't Pop Job nor $1 Million Milkshake. And I'm not going to fight it. Just, to me, I think sometimes I get a little slack starting on Queen's English from the hardcore power pop fans, like, hey, what happened?
Yeah.
But I don't know, life happened, and I just went with it, just okay. And to me, I never understand that anyway, because you listen to, like the top of the top, you listen to the Beatles and you listen to the White Album, and they're expanding their palette, and you've got Honey Pie, and you've got, Rocky Raccoon, you've got all these things.
Sure. Oh my God, yeah.
And I don't feel like I really went that far out of the lines,
No.
with Queen's English nor this new record, Top of the World. So, but I get it. I know there are certain people, they want to hear the certain kind of thing they want to hear, and that's cool. I totally get it. But for me, it was just following the organic curve of things, and I just went with it.
Well, yeah, and we talked.
Why so much time between records?
Oh, go ahead, David. We talk about the fact that you could hear a debut album from an artist or from a band, and it might just strike the heck out of you right then and there. And what you hope for down the road with subsequent releases is that same kind of taste of the first thing that you heard from them, because that was an emotional time, even though the bands are going to grow and they're going to expand their palette and things are going to be different. There's just something back here that says, I want my before and after from Cotton Mather. I don't want 40-watt solution, or whatever it may be, because it hit you at a time, and that's what you're looking to recreate that moment.
Yeah.
And moments are gone. Yeah. They change,
They're gone, man. And to be honest, to this day, I think Pop Job is the big favorite amongst folks who listen to my stuff, and I love it. I love that it resonated with people. I think it was a time and a place, like you're saying, a moment, and I'll take it, man. It's totally cool. I mean, people have memories and things attached to these songs that I'll never know about. Some I will, because people tell me, but I can't say that it's a bad thing, at all. I love it, so I embrace that record for sure.
So why so much time between records? What were you doing in the interim?
Oh, man.
Talk about what's happening. Yeah.
Just life, I suppose. I mean, first off, I'm a bit of an OCD perfectionist, so that does not help, for certain. Again, like we were talking about earlier about the sound that we're looking for, and passing up on mixes that people would be like, hey, I mixed records for Elton John. Why is it not good enough for you? Kind of thing. But I think there was a little bit of that going on between the first and second record, and then between Milkshake and Queen's English, there was a good amount of time, and that was again because of life, sort of moving and building the nest, like I spoke about before, and having a kid, and all that stuff was going on. I was also doing a little bit of music for television and stuff like that, just a little bit, and doing some outside production of some local artists and things like that. So I was doing a bunch of things like that between Milkshake and then there was some industry stuff that was going on, like we were talking about with managers and stuff. So that held up that record, because there was some talk of, there was a lot of weird stuff with Queen's English. Like, actually, one thing that I have never spoken about is that record. There was talk with a manager and a theater agent about turning that record into a theater thing, like a one-man show kind of thing.
Wow.
Because I guess the narrative nature of that record and the fact that it was kind of a family-ish record, and there was a a loose narrative to the song. So we went through that for a while, and that kind of delayed the release of the record, and then just, you know, crashed and burned in the biggest way possible. But as showbiz, you know, you know, and so then I was like, okay, we're done with that now. Can I put the record out? You know, so that happened with that. And then this record, you know, this record was a whole nother, you know, story, you know, just again, life, doing outside work. There you go. Top of the World. David's holding it up. And that was, there. He wants some B-sides.
You're talking to some record geeks out here.
Yeah. So that was that whole thing was just, again, you know, life, work, family. Unfortunately, my mom at this point in time, she's 93. She has dementia. I'm kind of overseeing her whole care. You know, she wants to remain at home. So I'm trying to make that wish happen for her, which has become a very arduous thing, and it takes a lot of time, you know. So you couple all that, then you throw in a little of a COVID horribleness, and you get 14 years. You get 14 years later, you get a new record.
It's like that.
It's like that. Right.
Let's play another track from it.
Yeah.
Here's one. This is the fourth track called "Why Does This Woman Love Me," which I think is very Nilsson-esque. So here we go. We're going to just play it, and then we can talk about it.
Why does this woman love me? Why does she love me so? I'm asking the Lord above me. He say he don't even know. I wear my socks to bed, crazy ideas in my head. I'm always talking to myself, checking the stove at night in case it's still burning bright. There's no doubt in my head ain't right. Why does this woman love me? Why does she love me so? I'm asking the Lord above me. He say he don't even know. Blessings with some old CD. Thank my lucky stars, 'cause she looks past all the weird in me and sees a man that no one sees. The package he brings can't pound a nail, can't turn a screw. I get some soap in eye and feel like I'm gonna die. Ain't the manliest man, it's no lie. Why does this woman love me? Tell me, mama. Why does she love me so? I'm asking the Lord above me. Say you don't even know. He say you don't even know. He don't really.
Is that an ode to your wife?
Yes, it is. And I was going to point out at the very end, if you listen at the very end, you hear woo-hoo, it's by Billy Joel.
Yeah.
Glass House's homage, but almost nobody's brought that up yet. It's right. It's a little
right
Easter
there.
egg.
Okay.
At the very end of the song.
It's hard to hear. If I had my headphones in, I'm sure I would.
Yeah. No, if you next time you guys listen to it, think of that. Just because we were talking about Billy Joel before, but yeah, to answer your question, yeah, that's a song for my wife for sure. Putting up with my craziness, you know.
I can relate, Mark. Believe me, I ask my wife that question all the time.
Yeah, me too. You know, I think we all can. You know, it's sort of like what's the deal, man? Why do you put up with this goofy dude? You know, like I mean, that it's somewhat exaggerated, the lyrics, but it's mostly true. You know, it's like, you know, verbatim kind of stuff. I just kind of, you know, wrote that stuff down. You know, that's you know, just a bunch, in my mind, a bunch of slightly exaggerated truisms. You know,
I want to make sure everybody pays attention to what's scrolling across the bottom as well. All the information you need is markbacino.com. That leads you to a lot of different places, and the markbacino.bandcamp.com, where you'll be able to hear and purchase everything. And of course, we've been talking about Parasol Records. There's parasolrecords.com. So there's 3 different links you can check out to find all of Mark's material and this brand new album, which is called Top of the World. So make sure.
Hey, Mark, will there be any vinyl on
there
Top
is
of the World?
Yep, it's available now. It's available on
it is.
download and vinyl. Yep, we have actually we have the download, the CD. We have an autographed CD too, and we also have vinyl. Yeah, all at Parasol or Bandcamp. Bandcamp actually has the Bandcamp link. Well, every link has everything, but the Bandcamp link is the most direct if you want any of those options. Yeah, the vinyl is
the best thing about. Here's a plug for Bandcamp. The best thing about buying on Bandcamp, if you buy vinyl, is that you will get a download immediately. So even if you don't want the CD, you can make a CDR if you want,
right,
and play it in your car, which is really how I do most of my listening, actually, in my car. So that's always convenient. Yeah, I'll be heading to Bandcamp in a little bit because I mean, albums that I really like, I got to have on vinyl too these days. So.
God bless you, man. I love people like yourselves, man, who, you know, who support the cause. And yeah, you know, I mean, it means a lot to everybody, you know, because in the age of streaming, you know, this is it, you know, not that I'm really, you know, I'm not making a living off this stuff, and I'm not real, but it does help because, you know, these things cost money, you know, all this stuff.
Yeah, hell yes, they do, especially vinyl.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm one of those people who believes in the physical product. I don't want to see it go away. I have nothing against streaming. I think it's great as an option, but that shouldn't be the end all be all. There has to be something you can hold in your hand, whether it's a CD, vinyl, cassette, whatever it is.
Yeah.
There's, you know, it always frustrates me when people release their albums as digital only. It just drives me nuts. So I'm so glad that you've done physical on this.
Yeah, man. Thanks to Parasol. They've been really great about it. You know, it's definitely an expense. Vinyl is very costly, as you guys know, to do these days, but they were willing to do it. So shout out to them, you know, for making that happen, because it's always a great thing for artists to have. And yeah, you're right about the streaming thing. I mean, we grew up looking at albums laying in our bed, looking at albums and cassettes and reading liner notes and things like, and I hate to see that, you know, I hate to see that go now. Edison cylinders.
Yeah, that's right.
And you know, that I would miss out on. And I just think it sounds better too, man. You know, let's face it. It sounds better on CD. It sounds better on vinyl. And one thing that really hit home for me with this record was, you know, because I'm zeroed in to the micro listening of this record. You know, when you release something, you're really like tuned into it. And I listen to Spotify all the time. I mean, I do. I'm guilty of it. But
nothing to be guilty of.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, it's great to have the history of recorded music at your fingertips. I mean, it's fantastic. But when I was listening to this record, I listened to it when it first came online, and I was like, something sounds weird with the like in the top end, and then I went into the settings for Spotify and I bounced it to the hi-fi settings, and that went away. And then I realized, oh, okay, so most of the time, as we think of it, that we're listening to substandard stuff, we know we are, but it is really happening.
I didn't know there was a hi-fi setting. I'm gonna have to.
The hi-fi, as long as you're on, if you're on a Wi-Fi, you can. I think it just means that it bumps the file that you submitted, and we always submit WAV files. That it bumps it, I think, up to maybe like 320 kilobits per second in terms of MP3.
Now, are you only the artist can change that setting, or can we?
No, it's listener generated. So yeah, I think you can make that if you're listening to Spotify in your house, let's say, and you're on Wi-Fi, then it'll work. If you're on, a 5G network, it's going to probably dump you down to like 128 kilobits or something.
Yeah.
Most people don't notice, but
yeah, well, it's worth a shot. Now, one question I've wanted to ask you since the beginning of the broadcast. One thing that you haven't done a lot of throughout your career is play live, and I'm wondering, is it because you're a perfectionist and you don't feel like you can reproduce the album to your satisfaction, or are you just more of an introvert and don't like to be on stage, or have you just not found a band that you're happy with?
I think it's I don't know if it's I haven't found a band I'm happy with, but I think there's a little bit of truth to all of that. It's also just time and logistics. I don't totally dislike the live thing, but there is an element of perfectionism to it. I feel like these records that I've made are a little hard to reproduce live. I think because of the production and the level of production and the type of music that it is and the arrangements and all that stuff. So that's always been a little thing that bugs me a little bit. I always feel like I can't really reproduce it live. I mean, it would be, we'd have to have a Brian Wilson Wondermint's band up there to try to do, and that's obviously very expensive. So that's one thing that's always bugged me a little bit. But I think the way I worked around that is to just say, well, it's going to have to be different, Mm-hmm. It's just going to be different. I don't know if it's better. I did kind of fall in with a good group of friends in a band that I've been playing on and off with, over the years. Some people who are in the core group of things that have stuck with me. So that's cool, but I think it's a combination of all those, and it's really about time too, man. That's the biggest thing for me. It's like time, money, that kind of thing. And then a little bit of that sort of perfectionism thrown in that bugs me a little bit about it. I could go and do a show and people say, oh, wow, that was great. And then I was always like, no.
Yeah, you always have to remember that people can't hear what you hear.
Very true. Yeah. I mean, the being up on stage is a very, weird experience in terms of what you hear. You're certainly not hearing what the room hears, and you can't go by that.
And also, they can't hear it the way you conceptualized it either. I mean, that's in your head.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's definitely a thing. I've tried to push beyond that over the years, but again, I think it's more, if anything, it's just more time. It's just my time.
You don't finish up an album, put it out, and then just say, let's go play it live. It doesn't happen like that,
At this stage, I think in these past couple of records, it's been like that for me. I think when I put Pop Job out, we definitely played more. Same with Milkshake, I think, to a certain extent. But then, as life goes on and your responsibilities become, more and more, and then it's just about bandwidth, man. Like, what do you prioritize? And to go back to what you guys said earlier about legacy, I feel like, well, if I'm gonna put these songs somewhere, and I'm gonna try to carve out some middle of the night time, which is a lot of what this record was done on, I'm gonna probably put it towards the recorded songs, because I feel like, again, they're gonna go out there, they're gonna have a life beyond a 1-off or 2-off or 5-off show, that I do, and they're gonna go out into the world and be the ambassador of these songs, and last, again, like we said, well beyond. So I think that's where I've been putting my energy in with very little time to spare. I think
I'm gonna be a big asshole right now, and I'm going to put you on the spot again. I know we've talked about this, and we haven't come to a conclusion, but IPO New York is happening in November.
Yes.
And it would mean a hell of a lot to me if you accept my invitation to play. I know you want to put a band together, and it's got to be right. But just know, and I want the public to know too, that
no pressure.
We've never had Mark Bacino at IPO, except as you were once a spectator.
No, we did it. We did the first one.
Oh, that's right. You did do the first one in 01. Yeah.
We did two, I think. We did two.
Did you do two?
Yeah, we did. I did the first, and I'll get to your offer. I'm not trying to defer. But yeah, we did. I can't believe I'm stumping the Bash on this one, man.
Yeah, I'm pretty shocked.
I have a lot of damn bands.
You've done a lot of shows.
Oh my God, yeah.
We did IPO New York, the very first one, at Brownies.
The first show we ever did. No wonder I don't remember.
Right. Did you ever do a show in LA before that or no?
No. The first one in New York was at Brownies, and that was the only one we ever did there. Because then they went up.
Yeah, then the Brownies is gone now. But legendary club, great club.
Yeah, it was great. I loved it.
Yeah, that was. We did that, and then I believe it was the next year. I don't think we skipped a year. It might have been. Maybe there was a year in between, but I don't think so. Then you'll tell me the next one was at Arlene Grocery.
Yeah.
Was that number 2 or 3?
It could have been either because we were there for 4 years.
Okay.
And I got to admit, I was probably there. I don't remember it either.
Okay, so I think that was. I think it was 2.
Color me embarrassed.
No. I
stumped the Bash. I loved it.
But yeah, there was. I mean, maybe it was. I don't know how good it was, to be honest. Who knows? But
I'm sure it was fun.
There it is.
Thanks a lot.
I don't know if I was. Maybe I was substandard and not.
No. I'm sure that was.
But there was. Yeah, those were. I believe we did those. I know we did those 2 shows, and but it was early on, man. You've done a lot of stuff.
Very early on, and now you're back. And I would love to hear you.
Yeah, man.
I'm this record live.
I'll tell you this. I'll promise you this much. I'm gonna shoot for it. We'll definitely talk. My thought, as I told you, and I don't mind speaking about it publicly. Just again, for me, it's about time and bandwidth, especially my situation now.
Yeah.
My family responsibilities and everything. No,
I get that.
But what I wanted to do my thought was to put this record out. The record came out in early June. I'm like, okay, let me deal with the press and all the responsibilities that I have to the label, and to help them get their money back. And to work on that for the time that I have extra to work on that for a couple of months. And then I'm thinking, come the fall, maybe September, maybe late August, I don't know. I saw some of my bandmates last night, and they were like, so what's the deal? What are we doing? Are we gonna, And so I'm gonna shoot for that, man. I will definitely. We will stay in touch, and I will reconvene the band, and we'll see how it sounds. And if I can get over my OCD-ness, then which I think I can, then we'll talk about it.
Well, I'm very.
You mentioned something earlier, and I think I think everything you've done, and especially this latest record, would translate very well. Even simplified, just a piano player and acoustic guitar, and you could pull off
this album definitely could.
Yeah. I'm thinking that I think the last go around for Queen's English, we did a few shows for Queen's English, and that was a bit elaborate. We had two horns, a drummer, piano player, 2 guitar players, backing vocals. It was a big affair, for that record. And I don't know if I would go with the horns this go around. Maybe I don't know, but it would definitely be. I think we can, if we do guitar, bass, drums, keyboard, piano. I think we could do it. I mean, the tough part now is that I have all these songs, so it's going to be like, what do I do and what don't I do?
Well, certainly you emphasize the new record. You want to continue to sell that. So
yeah. So we're gonna. I want to make it. I've been thinking about it a little bit. So I've been thinking, maybe we'll do a little cross section. I know I want to play stuff from Pop Job that people want to hear. That definitely is going to happen. So
nice.
Yeah. Well, hopefully my voice will. Hopefully I can do those things.
I hope so too. Well, Mark, thank you so much for being our guest.
Hey, man, thank you.
Really fun.
Can I do this next week? I mean,
Yeah. We'll have you back. Next record you put out, we'll have you back for sure.
Excellent.
In the meantime, everyone, Top of the World on Parasol Records, Mark's brand new record. It's excellent. It's available on CD and vinyl. Check it out, parasolrecords.com, which is scrolling on the bottom. I'm going to be going there shortly to buy the vinyl because
Cool.
I have to have the vinyl. And again, it was great to see you again after all these years.
Yeah,
and,
man.
Best of luck with everything, especially your family situation.
Thank you. I really appreciate that, man. I think we all go through, so we can all understand it. But thanks for that, and thank you guys for being so kind and so taking the time out to do this. And thank you, Rich, for hanging out, and Tim. Yeah, it's been great, man. I just had a blast with you guys. It's like it's an oddities reunion.
There you go. That's true. We all were there.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, best luck with the release. Parasol Records, markbacino.bandcamp.com, markbacino.com. You've seen all the links going across the bottom. So we hope everybody either watching it live or on the archives in the weeks to come goes out and supports this great music. So we loved it. Thank you again, Mark, for being with us.
My pleasure, man. Thank you, guys.
Take care.
You three have a great night, Mark.
You too, guys.
Well, there you have it, Dick.
Man,
that was fantastic.
An excellent guest, an artist who truly has a wonderful body of work. Everybody needs to check it out. All the way through all 4 of his albums and the brand new one, Top of the World. Indeed. So we've got some pretty cool guests coming up. Actually, we have a change in our schedule. I haven't mentioned yet, but nothing we can't handle. Next week, as we mentioned a few times, we have the main man of the great band, the Eravons, whose record Resurrection, a record that never did come out when it was recorded back in 1969, but did come out on CD on Revola in 2003, and now for the first time on vinyl on Euclid Records. We're going to have Tom Hartman, who's going to tell us about the whirlwind experience they had as being teenagers who were invited from St. Louis to Abbey Road to record there, released a single at the time called World of You, which is on this record, recorded a whole bunch of other songs, but they didn't come out until years later. And so we're going to hear from Tom, who's still very enthused about all of this and was thrilled to death that that the album came out on vinyl. So check it out. Tom Hartman on the 24th. On the 31st, we're going to have Auteur Extraordinaire. He's written a lot of books. He, like Mark Bacino, is a New Yorker as well. But the main book that we're going to focus on is Heroes and Villains, the true story of the Beach Boys. As I mentioned a few times, its veracity has been challenged over the years because there's so many outrageous things in this book, stuff that you would never think the Beach Boys would be associated with or would have done. Some of it will, if you've never read this book, some of this will absolutely amaze you. I mean, some of it has come out in other books as well, but I mean, this is a very entertaining book also. There may be a little embellishment in here for entertainment value, but I'll tell you, when I first read this, it was like, holy shit, I can't believe that these guys did some of the things they did. It's much less about their music than it is about their life outside of the studio, and it's pretty outrageous. So anyway, we're going to have Steven. We'll talk about this book and some of the other things that he's written. Yeah. I heard him back in the late 80s, around a little after this book came out. I heard him on the Howard Stern show, and he was very entertaining then. So I'm sure 30-something years on, he still will be. So we look forward to that on July 31st. On August 7th, we do not have a guest at present, but we the guest that we had scheduled for August 14th, we're going to move him to a different date. And instead, on August 14th, we're going to have our good friend Sparkle Jets UK.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Sparkle Jets UK will be releasing their new album, Box of Letters, on Big Stir Records. It'll be released. They'll have a record release show in mid-August. So we're going to kind of piggyback that by having them on the show. They just did a record listening party in Long Beach a few days ago. I attended that, and they did sell the record there, but only to the people who showed up. Everybody else who didn't will have to wait for it to come out in mid-August on Big Stir. But or maybe it's sooner than, I should say, it might be actually out sooner than mid-August. Yeah,
sooner. Yeah.
It might be late July. I guess the release party will be in August. But anyway, I think it's coming out soon. They're great people. Jamie Knight, Susan West, Michael Simmons. We're going to have the three of them on, and that'll be a lot of fun. And then on the 21st, who do we got on the 21st of August, Mark?
We got Carl Caffarelli. What's the I'm forgetting. I just drew a blank on the title of his new book.
Oh, damn. So have I.
Hold on. I got it right here. It's come on, where is it? I just lost it. Carl, what's the new book?
We're so professional here.
No, it says it's brand new. I just read the whole PDF on the whole thing. The
greatest record ever made, volume 1.
Greatest record ever made. Hold on, right here. Yeah, because he wrote Gabba Gabba Hey with the Ramones book, and here's the greatest record ever made, volume 1. Yeah, which is just it's just a wonderful compendium of everything that he thinks are some of the greatest records ever made. And
Carl has written for many different fanzines, including I think he's written for Goldmine and many others. Probably wrote for Oddities and Amplifier and all the ones I wrote for too. So he and I have never met. I don't think we've ever seen each other online either, but we've known each other for a long time. So this will be an absolute pleasure getting to meet him and hearing about the things he's done, including the new book.
Yeah, and we'll talk about what he thinks are some of the greatest records ever made. And I think that's going to be a lot of fun, just our opinions on it,
Well, yeah, I mean, one of the great things about music is that everybody has a different opinion. And one of the things I love, like when I put the IPO CD together and I hand off the tracks to the mastering person, who's Alan Brownstein, otherwise known as Ruby Rubens from Single Bullet Theory. Anyway, one thing I always ask him is to give me his top 3 tracks from each of the 3 discs, partially because I'm hoping that they're not the same top 3 as I have. I want them to be different because I want every track on here to be something that somebody loves. And I think we've succeeded in that. I mean, obviously,
how many tracks are on this new one?
Well, this is volume 24. We don't have.
I know, but the new one coming up in August.
The new one will have 69 tracks.
69 tracks. Holy cow.
Which is the second most we've ever had, by bands from all over the world. And as I mentioned earlier, if you go to the IPO website, internationalpopoverthrow.com, just scroll down a bit, you'll hear 13 of those 69 tracks. We have them up there for listening purposes to whet your appetite. The CD itself will be available first at IPO LA on August 2nd. Anyone who pays to get in will get a free copy of the IPO CD. Wow. If you can't make it to IPO LA, don't despair, because our label Omnivore Recordings will be releasing it in early September. So you'll have to wait another month or so, and you'll have to pay for it, but it's a good price and it's well worth it. 69 tracks by acts from all over the world, most of whom have played International Pop Overthrow, but some who I would want to have play, but because
all you got to do is show up to IPO LA and you get a free 69 track IPO CD copy.
I mean, really, how cool is that?
How is it? I mean, nobody does that.
And it'll be our 25th one.
Wow.
I'll never forget the first one in 1998. Steve Stanley, who's been a guest on our show, and Elliot Kendall, who we should have as a guest because he's hilarious. They were both working at Delphi Records at the time. That was the label that put out Bobby Fuller and Barry White and so many other people from the 60s. They got to my apartment at that time the night before IPO started. I was sweating bricks, saying, and not a cavern brick either, saying, "Oh my God, our first IPO, and we've been advertising this CD for so long, and we're not going to have it." But thank God they got it there the night before IPO started, and we did have it. It was a single disc at the time, as was the next one. Then Volume 3 and 4 were 2 discs, and Volume 5, by that time we were doing IPO in a few other cities. So Volume 5 became 3 discs, and it's been that way ever since. So 25 is a real landmark. And I'm supposed to get them in about a week and a half, and I can't wait to have it in my hands.
When is the 100 disc box set coming out?
Well, Steve Stanley, our art director, has wanted me to do a best of IPO on vinyl. That's something that would be insanely expensive. It'd probably have to be a six record set. And
like Leader of the Pack. Remember Leader of the Pack from 1972? The 4 record. I still have that vinyl.
Oh, you mean the K-Tel thing, or was it?
It was like K-Tel
or one of those things. Yeah.
Yeah. It was like the record was thinner than this piece of paper. You know,
I know. Well, that was the only way they could make it sell for $10 or whatever it was. But yeah, you're right. The record, they would bend, but they wouldn't break. I mean, it wouldn't break those things. And I was talking to Mark Bacino about Nilsson. RCA was putting Nilsson albums out in the mid '70s on that bend but not break vinyl, and you really could take it and you could almost get the records size to touch each other, and it wouldn't break.
You could hear them when you went like this.
Yeah, and the K-Tel, a lot of the K-Tel type ones were like that too.
Oh God!
Yeah, it would have to be a 6 record set. I think the price would be prohibitive. Yeah. I don't think it's doable. I wish it was. It would be nice to have something on vinyl, but we're talking about 69 tracks on the regular ones, and a best of. We're talking about 25 years worth. That would have to be at least 4 records, maybe 6. As I said, just to
that, and the fact that we're still working on you to write your book on all the years of the IPO and your best.
I've been talking to people about it, and I've had people say there should be a documentary. And if anyone out there does documentaries or knows people who do, I would be so up for that.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that you could follow me around to the different IPOs, film the bands. I mean, the Power Pop movie is going to have, I believe it's going to have some footage from IPO and interviews with me, among many, many other things. So we might have to wait for that. But man, I would love to have somebody do a documentary on IPO. So I am so open to it if any of you are or know anyone who is. So anyway, I'm putting it out there.
We got a lot of things to work on. We got a lot of great guests coming up. August 7th is the only date that's open right now. We may leave that open just so we can play Stump the Bash and do some other things. But
it's during IPO, so so yeah, I don't know, but we'll see what we get.
Yeah, we'll see.
I just friended on Facebook a member of a pretty iconic power pop new wave band. I'm going to ask him if he'd like to be a guest. We'll see what happens. But we always
got a lot of irons in the fire. As I said, this is that's one of my bucket lists. Is
Jeanette definitely get the Black Widow, Jeanette Lee.
We'll see.
I mean, I didn't. That was the reason I watch women's billiards, and I have to admit, I wasn't a fanatic about it, but if I did watch it, it was because of her.
Yeah, well, of course, yeah. I mean, that's what everybody watched it for. But yeah, she's doing well. But so hopefully that'll happen. But we got a lot of great stuff coming up. So if you haven't subscribed over at materialissues.com, that's the best place. Now we're trying to build up the YouTube side of things. So share with your friends, subscribe.
We're having Cher on.
We'll tell you what's going on. What's that?
Did you say Cher?
Cher might. She talked about it, and then she woke up. But
she said only if you can turn back time, which we can't. Not yet.
Good one.
Yeah, like back to 1963.
Yeah.
No one heard of her.
we got great stuff coming up, and we've got a lot of irons in the fire. We've got great ideas. We might even have a trading card set coming down the road one.
Oh yeah.
Which is something we're working. We always got things going on. It makes it fun.
do.
It makes it fun. So we had a great guest tonight, Mark Bacino, his new album, Top of the World. Make sure you check that out at markbacino.bandcamp.com and markbacino.com and Parasol Records. It's all out there, been floating across the bottom of the screen. But we thank everybody for hanging out with us on episode 163 of Material Issues.
Yes, we hope
Love
to
to
have a great rest of the week. We have great rest of the week and weekend, and we look forward to seeing you again next week when we have Tom Hartman of the Aerovons. That should be a very, very interesting episode.
Have a great night, everybody. Love to Rena.
Love to Chaz.